FRC, yeah.
That's a copy of the written report for you. I'm sure you've read it extensively.
Jim, I can't stop reading this.
Let's just kick off for a moment by setting a context, because things have moved very, very quickly. One of the great fallacies is that the GAA is slow to change. The GAA, in fact, changes more than most sporting bodies, and in all sorts of ways. Come 2025, Gaelic football itself will be transformed. A task force like this doesn't usually capture the imagination, but the poor state of the game, married to the calibre of people involved in this newly established Football Review Committee, did land with the public. Chaired by Jim Gavin, with the likes of Eamon Fitzmaurice, James Horan, Colin Collins, Malachy O'Rourke and Michael Murphy alongside him, there was a sense the GAA finally meant business. The historical managerial career notwithstanding, Jim Gavin may have just delivered his greatest GAA legacy. 2025 will tell us much, but for now the omens are good. 3 days on from unqualified success at Congress, here's Jim Gavin. Jim, welcome.
Hi, Joe.
Deep breath of relief, I suspect.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's been an interesting couple of months.
Yeah, I'd say so.
To get through last Saturday in Croke Park was very pleasing. And I think off the bat, I'd have to say, well done to the leadership shown by all the delegates. The easy thing to do would have been to say no. And our engagement with them, over the last number of months, particularly last probably 2 weeks, very impressed with the level of engagement with the clubs. So the way the system works, the clubs mandate the county to vote in a particular way, and as you saw, that's the result we got.
Well, it's a landslide. For generations to come, political science students will study FRC 2024 and how they managed to do this. Thank you for coming in. I know you're a busy man. You were liaising with Ronan, and at one stage you said to me, Jim was wondering about 7 a.m. Tuesday. And I thought, geez, this man still enjoys an early morning debrief with the media. Yeah,
well, the aviation industry, it kicks off early. So my office is we're on Talbot Street here. My office is down at Lear Street, so it's very convenient for me.
You've had, you and the FRC, this is a very kind of profound effect on this precious thing, Gaelic football in Irish life, to those of us who love it. So you must feel a great degree of satisfaction with how it's all gone, or are you more on tenterhooks as to how it's going to play out in reality?
We're not on tenterhooks at all. Like we were asked to do a job, and we're doing the job. It's not finished yet. So when Jared reached out to me, probably this time last year, and we came up with Jared came up with these terms of reference, and we rallied the group, and what a selection he put forward, and they're I think we might have thought one or two might say no, but they all said yes, and it's been fascinating to get their insights into Gaelic football and just even get to know them on a personal level, where you don't normally get the chance to do that at inter-county level. Just life is so busy. So terms of reference are very clear. Vision of the association is very clear, and we're just on that journey. It's just gone through we put a strategic plan in place, executed it, and now we're on to that was probably the easy bit, probably last Saturday. Now we're on to the not the difficult bit, but the challenging bit, where we prepare match officials, team coaches, both at inter-county and club level, to implement the new rules from the National League next year, and club activity shortly thereafter.
So you're not nervous about all that playing out in reality? I would have thought there'd be a degree of, right, okay, entrusted with this grave responsibility in some respects, and now we're about to see it put to the test in potentially championship as well. I would have thought there'd be a few degrees of, geez, I hope this all goes well now after everything.
Of course there are, and we're I suppose intrigue is probably the word,
okay.
So if I go back a little bit to what the association wants for itself, in a strategic plan up to kind of 2026, it's on that journey to blend in or to merge the ladies football with men's football, and camogie with hurling, and those four codes, as they're called in the GAA, into one association. And part of their vision is that Gaelic games will become the most exciting amateur game in the world to play and watch. That's not ours. That's not the FRC's. We don't own this. We own the execution of the plan. but we don't own that vision. And it's quite audacious, isn't it? You know, it's really far-reaching, and so we just set up a in some ways a strategic plan to say, like, where are we now? What stage of the football is it in? Where do we want where do we want the game to go? And that's lining up the vision. You know, what could get in our way? What steps we need to take to get where we want to go? All of that. That's the framework of it. And probably the most important bit that I referenced there is the vision, because it does create the future, and it does help us understand what success would look like in the future. And that is that Gaelic games, in this instance Gaelic football, is the most exciting amateur game in the world to play and watch. So that's, like, if you ask me what success looks like, that's what it is.
Okay, no pressure.
No pressure.
To set a context, you personally played, obviously, to the highest level, coached more recently with great success, and then more laterally spectator. Just you personally, these last 4, 5, 6 years watching the game, had you stopped enjoying the spectacle of Gaelic football on an average weekend across the championship?
I wouldn't say every weekend, and I would have taken a big step back from the game. Like, I was involved for between 12 consecutive years, 7 with it's 5 with the 21s and 7 with the senior team, so it's quite a long spin. So when I probably got back into it, maybe because of my background in coaching, you have maybe an appreciation of the tactical dimension. I mean that in the greatest respect of, like, defence is part of everyone's game plan. Some teams want to play in a counter-attacking style, want to compress the defence, be it blended zone and man defence, and then break out. Some people, don't like that, but that is part of the game, because you have no offside rule in Gaelic football. You can put your players where you want, and that's what some coaches decided to do. And indeed, with the Dublin football team, often we brought all our outfield players in behind the 45. Wouldn't be our go-to defensive play, but hey, we did it, and I acknowledge that. So, but we had a particular way we wanted to play the game, which kind of speaks to the club scene we have in Dublin and how they play the football. So there's no right or wrong way to play Gaelic football. That's the first thing I'd say. And who am I to hear to stand on my soapbox and say I didn't enjoy it? Maybe the game in some instances were a little bit pedantic, and it's not what we're used to in terms of what my background from my, having grown up in the 80s and played football in Intercounty in the 90s. So there were some really exciting games, and then there's in the modern game there can be some periods of where the game is stagnant and pedantic as teams retreat, set themselves up defensively, and then the opposition have to break them down, and that sometimes can take a while for that to happen, until you begin to stretch the defence and get gaps and exploit those gaps and get your scores off. So the game kind of became a game of, still is a game of territory, the way, traditionally, because you need to get the ball up, but it became a game of sometimes possession and maybe economics as well, where you're maybe more concerned because of the shot-score ratios rather than the past. If you look back to the games, even when I played in the 90s, some of the, modern coaches would be aghast to see the level of turnovers, the level of mispassing, the level of wides in the game. Yeah. And that's just, it was of its time.
Yeah. And the interesting thing in response to all of that is, take a Kieran McGeeney, for instance. I would have seen over the last couple of years, but not just him, many within the game, when they're being asked about, the game's just not quite catching fire the way it would. Those in the game would, he memorably in my mind would react very strongly to that and say, well, all this negativity, the game has never been better, the skills are better than ever, the players are fitter than ever, can everyone just calm down here a little bit? And he would make that argument very convincingly. And also, the good games that really did catch fire were great. We've had great games in the last couple of years. So I guess even for you, there must have been a degree when you sit down with Charlotte and discuss it over those coffees initially of like, we've got to be so careful here, because some of the good games are better than ever, and those coaching are really not going to thank us. So that was kind of the dilemma in some respects, because I did at times find the McGeeney line very convincing. There's nothing wrong with the game.
Yeah, so I don't think it's convincing. I think he's from Kieran's perspective, he's right, and we all have different perspectives. And I think one of the challenges that we had in the Football Review Committee is to park our bias of what we felt the game, should be. The questions you're asking me, and it's our job to put the survey. So we put a survey out. We got over 7,000 responses, over 5,000 So that's the kind of the qualitative data, the quantitative data.
And did you use that the feedback in that survey in a big way? Was that a
very much so, yeah.
Okay. As opposed to, I'm Jim Gavin and I think it should be this way. Yeah. You kind of make it a touch more democratic.
Not a touch. It was democratic.
Okay.
Yeah. So and in general, people would in the survey said that we have a good game.
Did they?
Yeah. But then when you dive into it, in the specifics, they go, okay, well, we would like to have more kick passing. We'd like to have more high fielding. We would like to have more long range scores. We would like to have more one-to-one contests. We would like to have more goals. They're the five top things that emanated from the survey. So then we had that. Okay, that's what I use the corporate word stakeholders, but it's players, coaches, spectators, referees, administrators at inter-county and club level, everybody. That's the general sense at a very high level. So we had that. Then we had our terms of reference. We were asked to look at previous reports. So that would be the Standing Committee and Playing Rules. Their job is to look at the game and our rules being implemented. We look at the Football Review Committee. Eugene McGee, God rest him, chaired the last one 10 years ago in 2012 up to 2014. And then the terms of reference spoke about creating excitement for players and spectators, memorable moments, looking at potential new scoring systems, looking at the tradition of the game against the recent innovations of the game. And traditional game would be that the ball is played kind of vertically up the pitch. Charlie Elton kicks it out, Jack O'Shea catches the ball, turns around, kicks into bomber liston, fan pass to John Egan, and the ball's back of the net. That's kind of the traditional game as we'd see it. But that game is still played as we know. And we've seen some recent, even the club activity that in recent days that, that still is in the part of the game against the modern bit that I explained earlier on about that possession kind of economic space game. We're asked to look at a potential new blueprint for football. And so they were our terms of reference. And we hope what we have produced as a Football Review Committee speak to those terms of reference, which were voted upon last week. And the interesting bit now, as you said, is how is this going to work out next year?
Yeah. The speed of this whole thing has been really remarkable. Like Byrne said, he had met you for 4 coffees and this was all launched in February of this year. And I don't think he was defeatist in saying this back in February, Jarlath Burns. He said, as a former chair of the Standing Committee on Playing Rules, I can say I don't envy their task, the FRC's task. Because if I took 20 of you into a room and asked you for your opinions, there'd be 20 different perspectives on 1, even what the problem is, and then 2, how do we fix the problem? And I thought, I have to be honest, I thought, damn right, because any number of GAA panels I've tried to preside over the years, everyone has a different idea what the problem is and then what the solution is. So when you did sit down, and I do appreciate you took feedback from all those surveyed and you had the aims set out by the GAA where they wanted to get to. At a certain point, though, you have to sit in a room with the FRC, your fellow members, and someone has to say, what about we do this, or what about we do that? How quickly did the things start to take a kind of a shape where you all sort of said, I like that rule too, I like that rule? Or was there a lot of back and forth and Gavin, you don't know what you're talking about, what we need to do is this?
Yeah.
Give us a sense of those discussions.
Yeah, so the very first thing we did was we asked them to look at the rule book. I asked them the committee members to look at the rule book.
Had you ever read the rule book before?
No. The only time I'd see the rule book is when I was probably gone up to some appeals committee with one of the Dublin players.
Yeah.
And Shane O'Hanlon, God rest him, would bring my eyes to a Category 3 offence, and I'd have to say, what's that, Shane? And the county board Secretary John Costa would come in and explain it all and probably do all the talking.
Yeah.
So, no. And the interesting bit is when you hear people talking about, this is going to be a difficult rule to implement. When I'm coaching kids under 16s, I don't speak about the rule book. You coach the game.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen here. So conceptually, it can be sometimes difficult to see the games in your mind's eye. We obviously have the advantage at the FRC, having had all those discussions, seen it in our sandbox or test games where we would try a particular concept for 15 minutes. Does it work? Yes, no. Doesn't work. remove it,
how would
layer it on.
Yeah, that's very interesting. How would you judge how it worked? I mean, because at a certain point, I take all the rationale and strategy and all of these things, but at a certain point, someone has to, and you guys know football, it's in your blood, that's the way you learned it, not reading a rule book. Someone in the room has to say, it just didn't.
Yeah, and a lot of it's a good point. A lot of it's on your coach's eye. So that's why we had a very experienced, coaching, I suppose, ticket and management ticket on the football review committees. James Horan, Inford Smars, Colin Collins, Malky O'Rourke. Very experienced coaching. We had Colin Nally there, Michael Murphy, obviously from a football perspective, Alan McQuillan from Antrim, who was previously on the other standing committee in playing rules and was very close to that particular process. From a referee's perspective, with Patrick Doherty, who was the referees coordinator, and we would have clashed swords back in my time with the Dublin team. So he was, knows the rule book very well.
Yeah.
We had the Gaelic, the GAA's Director of Games Development and Coaching, Shane Flanagan. And then Michael Meany was the Corla representative that you have at every committee, and Michael's a former chair of Carlow, but a really experienced, politically knows the landscape, but just a really great sounding board for ideas. Everybody is a critical thinker, independent thinker. And for us all, it's about respect and creating that environment where we can all articulate our views. We never had a vote to say, okay, we're going to vote in this particular rule.
I was wondering,
it was by consensus. And
how do you get to consensus if Colin Collins is saying no, Jim? I just don't.
And he said it, and he was so entertaining. He kept it. He kept the morale of the troops up. A brilliant man, brilliant human being. But really had some great insights into the game. And again, we all have our own perspectives on what we believe the game should be played, and it's about that mutual respect to say, okay, well, ultimately, what's the best thing? So, at a very high level, we're serving association. So this isn't a particular thing I think that we need to get through because of whatever.
Yes.
And lots of things didn't pass because we just said, you know what? As we went through the initiative process, we met many Friday evening in Mullingar as a central point,
right?
And trashed things out late into the night, and did this the following week and online calls when work was finished. So that dialogue then, I think we obviously had the structured process around it, be it making presentations on a particular. I'd be breaking into groups and presentation on a particular facet or area that we wanted to look at, or just kind of little workshops where we break them into groups and we'd kind of brainstorm and come up with ideas. And we did base it around the rule book, and that's probably the most important thing to say, that there's in the rule book you have set play, you've got technical fouls, aggressive fouls, so there is a structure around that.
Okay. From
that then emanated the proposals.
Enjoyable?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
Fun
we wouldn't have.
well?
We wouldn't have. Like, we all put our hand up. It's a volunteer-based association organisation. So we're all just investing our own personal time into it. Hopefully, we would think for the greater good of the association. And it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah.
As I said, even to get to know the guys that we wouldn't have had a chance before.
Slightly different tint to your relationship with James Horan as opposed to a decade ago.
Yeah, and obviously, and like that's we're both understand where we came from.
Yeah.
Representing our various counties, but ultimately we're in the same club as in the GAA, and to a person in that group, we're all just doing it for the right reasons.
And did you get a sense? Could you tell Michael Murphy was steering rules to facilitate his comeback?
No, but we were very grateful that he was on the panel. I'd heard from the Dublin players who would have been with Michael in Dublin City University that he's a very intelligent man.
Yeah,
and that certainly came to the fore. Donegal lucky to have him, and just that player's input, and I'm glad that he made the decision to go back to the county, because if a Dublin player asked me, he was on the committee, I don't know what I'd say to him. And it's not about integrity. If he still wanted to be involved, we'd still have him, because I know Michael and indeed Malky would make decisions based on the greater good rather than their own county that they're involved with now. We have to now to reconstitute the committee. We were going to do that anyway, because at the next phase we need to get experts in athletic development, statistics, a whole facet of areas that we will need to support us closer, and indeed the referees as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other elements now as we begin to ramp up, as we'll do what's called a benefit analysis on these proposals to see do we get the value we believe that we got from them, and again that'll be there'll be longitudinal studies done on in each game. We'll be surveying. Anybody who goes to a game live, you'll get a QR code where we'll want your input from a manager, a coach, are you an official, are you a spectator, are you a player? Have a simple Likert scale, then have some comments box, and so we'll just feed that data in. We got statistics based on how the game is played. We'll get the athletic developments of the high-speed runner, for example.
Yeah, that was a slight reservation a few players had, didn't they? That there'd be more running, more demands on the players.
Yeah, you would think, again, looking at the game, you'd think that it looks more high-speed running. In the interprovincial games, the database is imperfect because we took breaks in play, and there's a big squad of 30 players, so it's not representative of the current game where you can only have 5 substitutions, 35-minute game. So that data, it's corrupt. It's good data, but it's in terms of it's in isolation. But from a comparison perspective, it's not good.
Okay.
But I would say from looking at the Meath regional tournament, so Meath ran a tournament of the last 5 weeks, 4 groups of 4. 12 games, 2 semis, that's 14 games, and a final, the 15th game. I was there for the first game, the third round, and I saw the final in Ashbourne two Saturdays ago. So from a high-speed running perspective, I didn't see any player cramp up. Now, it's only a 30-minute game, albeit, and they're players from junior A, B, and intermediate. Not to say that those players don't cramp up. They probably do, probably even more. But there's no soft tissue injuries, which is typically comes from overload. And didn't see, and they were playing. These players played a back-to-back over 5 weeks.
Okay,
2 teams got to the final. So didn't see any fatigue that would concern me from a coaching perspective. What I saw was even at the very first game, I saw a very enjoyable game of football. Yes, you can still get players in behind the ball and have your set defence, your hybrid of man-to-man and zone defence with those 11 players. You can still do that. But what I saw was a lot more kick passing, quicker transitions out of defence, goals, more one-to-one contests, and a lot more attacks. So every time a team has the ball, that's the commencement of an attack. So it was a much more flowing game.
Okay. And
I'd say as well for the referees, based on the implementation of the solo and go, that speeds it up. And then if you don't clear the way for the solo and go, if you try to delay a player, called the delay foul, the ball's about 50 metres. So quite quickly the players realised, I've got to hand the ball back, I've got to clear the way. And it makes the referee's job a lot easier because there's less faffing around and clunkiness around where a free took place. So yeah, what I've seen to date on Interpros as well is that the game flows very well, and it flows naturally.
Well, we tease all that out in a moment. Just one other one is that in February, Burns said of the timeline for this thing. He said, we're hoping we'll have an interim report in December, is what he said actually back in February.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, was he just buying you time? Or was he when the QT was saying, Jim, I don't want a bloody interim report in December. I want this thing over the line in December. Was that, what was your timeline?
I think initially the concept was that we would probably go to, then they've gone back to like this time last year when you were kind of, you're in that
coffees and you're
in that brainstorming sessions that you'd have to have a special congress in December. And before that, you'd have to have for any, the Supreme Governance Body of the GAA is the Central Council, or Corla, and the Supreme Body for rule changes. So interestingly, it's quite the association, Anti-Institute Association, they call it the rule book. So everything for the administration, you've kind of two parts with it's called the official guide. So any changes to that, so it could be just administration things go into the rule book. It's unique in the GAA. So the Supreme Governing Body to change rules, or amend rules or make rules, is Congress. So the Congress is where you have all the counties represented. You've got all the units of the association are there. So what I mean by that is the GPA, the Handball Association, the overseas. So we had people there from Boston, from Bristol, from Brisbane, in Croke Park last week. So all the units were represented. So that was the original time frame. But when the committee, we sat down and we started to do our strategic planning process, I said, like, where are we now? Where do we need to go to? And what could we get in our way and all that? So we came up, obviously, with a very simple Gantt chart of like what part of the timelines here. Became apparent very, very quickly that okay, we need to have this in December, and we just worked everything back from there. So, like this is project management 101. Like there's nothing.
Yeah, it's quick though. It is quick. I mean, it's a hell of a turnaround from February to be here in December with the thing over the line. Like it's good going.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's good planning part of the FRC. I acknowledge that, but then you get out and you execute the plan.
We all watch the trial games. That's been our big exposure to it. You guys have seen a lot more, obviously, but the trial games were our kind of big exposure to it. Darragh O'Shea had a good column, I thought, in the Times about it. He said of just the general air of the games, which was always going to be an issue versus championship games. He said the general air of positivity, it filtered down to the players, trying to showcase the rules instead of playing a game of football, winning a game of football. What the FRC needed, more than anything, was for teams to come out and act the bollocks. And I sort of know what he's getting at. And so the true test will be an All-Ireland semi-final, and a manager's going to say, I don't care about the new bloody rules. This is how we manipulate them for our cause. Yeah. So that's the drawback of those trial games. But you obviously felt they went pretty well, bar the 4-point goal and the 2 points for 45. Something crystallised across that weekend where you thought, let's take those out? Yeah, well, I think for quite perceptive from Darragh. I would disagree in terms of the data. I mean, you need to build up a database for any particular tactic you're introducing. It needs to go through that iterative process of you test out with a 15-on-15 in your inter-county team, and the ultimate test is when you stress test at the National League or the Championship. And he wasn't being critical there. He was sympathetic to the reality of how you go through a process. Yeah. But I saw players acting in the Meath game, when there was a trophy on the line in Ashbourne, and the crowd are in the game, and there's good hits as you'd expect from Meath football going in, and there was no quarter given or taken, and they went toe to toe, and so that's again from my coaching perspective and coach's eye, that's the most competitive game obviously I've seen to date. Was that final? I didn't realise that was on a windy, rainy night in Ashbourne. I think the score would have been 2-12 to 1-11. And even in the inter-county games, it'd be a really good game against Mulhorn, against Gavin, against Kildare. One of the last games we played, that was a full game played under the proposed rules at the time. But nothing has changed. The only thing that changed would have been the ability of a player of the opposition to intercept a kick out inside the 40-metre arc. Won't go into it, but that was one of the learnings from it. Cavan 222, Kildare 316. As an old elderly Cavan gentleman behind me said at the end of the game, it's a long time he's seen Cavan score 222. So, and that was quite, again, it's a inter-county challenge game. Nonetheless, you've got a new manager, Brian Flanagan, with Kildare. He's probably one of his first games with the team. They're trying to put their best foot forward. It's a decent litmus test. Yeah, Raymond Gallagher, who's from Cavan, had a number of players, he told me afterwards, that were from the 20 squad, bringing them up again. They're like, I know for myself, this is your shot now, guy. Take it. Yeah. And what was interesting about that game was they had a very I won't mention the player's name to put any pressure on him, but a player came up from 20 squad. Probably a comparison, I'd say, kind of the one of the Cannon brothers. That frame, light enough frame, highly skillful player. Thrived in the new rules because he was playing off. He was with the three up. He was playing close to the goal. He got more one-to-one opportunities. He was playing off a big full forward in Cavan. I think he scored a 1-3. And Raymond said afterwards that he probably wouldn't have been on the squad in the current game of Gaelic football because he mightn't have that aerobic capacity to get up and down the pitch and all the stuff that's worked. So I think you're going to see the traditional corner forward coming back into play. To a certain extent. Yeah, it's the Michael Murphy rule. I said that, not you. Back to the 4-point for a goal and the 2 points for the 45. What was it about seeing it in Croke Park that made you think it doesn't quite work? Yeah, so this is probably more to do with the structures of our competition in Gaelic football, where, and I'm a firm believer of it as well, that every team should have the opportunity to go for the Sam Maguire.
Doesn't matter what league you're in. The reality of it is, if you're in Division 4, Division 3, it statistically, has any team won the All-Ireland? Question for you.
Oof. From Division 4, Division 3,
Yeah.
in the history of the association?
Yeah. Whenever we had them.
I'm going to say
probably not.
Law of averages, no.
No, probably not, yeah. So when you have a Division 2 team going against a Division 4 team, in general, the Division 2 team is going to win that game, or Division 3 against Division 1, or Division 1 against Division 4. And these are the matchups that we can get in Championship. And the great thing about the current structure of the Championship is that if you get your provincial final, even if it's Division 3 or Division 4, you get into the All-Ireland Series, and that's one way of progressing your standards. So there was concern afterwards, and we spoke to some of the committees of the Corla after the games, that with that mismatch where teams could get behind very, very quickly. And we saw that one of the games we had in Abbottstown, Celbridge, who got to the Kildare County final, played against Castleknock, and Celbridge got 3 goals inside the first probably 10 minutes. Okay. Straight away they're 12 points up. So we'd seen it already. We were aware of it. And we saw it in 2 games actually. And you go, okay, that's something which, the point I would have made was, well, if you concede 3 goals in the current system, that's 9 points. It's not a good day. It's not a good start. But nonetheless, you do have the option of the 2 points, but if it's a windy day and you're playing into the wind and all that stuff. So on balance, we took the decision, let's address this right now. And with motion 1, which is the nail motion that was passed last Saturday, Central Council, on a recommendation from Cushta Banishty, which is the managing committee of the association, who get a recommendation from the Standing Committee on Playing Rules, who the FRC fit into, they can amend or rescind any rule. Yeah. So, for example, the scenario you presented me there, we might come out of the National Football League and go, and the feedback that we get and the evidence that presents itself said, you know what, to balance it up between 2 points and the goals. Now, I still think we're going to get a lot more goals anyway because of the space that's there, and with the 3-3 structure, and with the fast counter attack, and players now being up the pitch. You know, we gave an example in the Derry, in Croke Park last week, the Derry Kerry game of last year, where David Clifford, Kerry had all their 14 outfield players in behind the 45. Ball was broken out, passed it to David Clifford, and David took the ball into the Derry half, but he'd nobody to pass it and right out of the road. And great defending by Derry, the 2 back, and they forced him to peek the shot wide. In the what happened in 2025, if that happens, one, you'd expect that David is probably further up the pitch, and secondly, if he's not 1 of the 3, he kicks the ball up to 1 of the 3, and then there might be more 1-to-1s inside. I would still think that teams will probably defend with probably 4, if not 5 defenders. I'm not sure if they'll be that naive to go man to man, but hey,
you never know.
Who knows?
Do you know? Do you have a vivid memory of Galway Donegal last year in the All Ireland semi-final?
Don't have a vivid memory, but I remember the game.
Yeah. So I was at it, and it was very interesting in that McGuinness's Donegal went 2v2. So Walsh and Comer man-marked entire half to themselves. Yeah. And I would say almost with certainty, not once did Galway turn over possession somewhere in their own halfway line even, and think, there's Shane Walsh with a one-on-one. He's going to make a run, I'll pop it into him. Yeah. Every single time it was possession, check back, turn away from bodies, hand pass, hand pass, and we're going to take our merry time here to march up the field. Yeah. And so I was kind of thinking, in a way, that was like an interesting example in an All-Ireland semi-final. Like the setup, I mean, is what like the FRC might be interested in, like a 2v2. I mean, let's play the odds here. This Pork Joyce is the manager. I mean, any team are going to... And it was really interesting they didn't. And so say that's a 3v3 next year. And I didn't enjoy that game. I thought there were amazing points being taken, which covered over what was that lateral game. Yeah. I sat there, I thought, this isn't very good. The points are good, but the game isn't good. Yeah. And so I wonder, 3v3 next year, they play each other in the same in the same semi-final. I just still think when it gets down to it, those kind of stages of championship, that pressure, I still think Galway man wins possession, check back, hand pass, take our time. Well, I don't see why he's more incentivized to kick it into a 2v2 now than he would be with a 3v3. What's changed? Well, it's how what you're as a coach, as a team, what are your principles of play, what's your philosophy in football. I certainly know the Dublin players would have been hunting at 1v1s. If you see a 1v1, the ball is only going one way. That's up to the 1v1. Then it's up to the corner forward to win your own ball.
you can't win your own ball, we get somebody else on the can. So that would have been so it's all to do with coaching philosophy and teams how they see the game to be played, and will they exploit that 1-to-1 rather than wait for a 2v1 or a 3v1.
I mean, I hope they do. I think that's back to Darragh O'Shea's point that the trial games, there was an air of... I watched the trial games and look, I think what you've done here is brilliant, and I'm really looking forward to it because I love Gaelic football. I've played it all my life. It's I want this to succeed. Yeah. But I watched those trial games and I said, there's not a top level manager in the country that's going to tolerate even a tenth of these number of turnovers. It's not worth it. No way. And I think Joyce is as shrewd as it gets. And he knows, geez, if anyone understands the joy of a 1v1, it's Pádraig Joyce. Yeah. And even in that, at that level, Galway and Joyce said no.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. We're taking our time. And actually, there's an argument that now that our keeper can join and we have a 12v11, that's the incentive is for us to keep the ball even more so and work our keeper into the opposition half. And then we've got all sorts of set plays with a 12v11, and that's how we're going to beat Donegal. That'd be my fear.
Yeah, so that scenario is already there. So you would have seen the All-Ireland final where, the last couple of attacks where, Donegal, Armagh defended in depth, conceded an outfield play, set up their defensive line, the goalkeeper supported. So you had 14 outfield Armagh players inside of 45 against probably 6 Galway forwards, another 2, that's 8, now up to 22 players, and the other remaining Galway players on an arc outside trying to break that zone defence down. So you can already overload the goalkeeper. So there's nothing has changed here in that respect. The only thing that's changed is that it's 11 defenders versus 11 outfield defenders versus 11 attacking players. Like we were asked on a number of occasions, or the feedback we got was, to reduce teams to 13 aside, to create more space. Now teams can, the well-coached teams can still create a lot of space. The Gaelic football pitches are 90 metres in width in Croke Park. It's a wide pitch, so there is opportunities, but it can be quite pedantic and it can be quite time-consuming to do it, but it can be done.
Yeah.
But I give you a scenario. Imagine with 1 minute on the clock to go over a point down. And they decided, you know what, we're going to try and work a play to get Shane Walsh onto the ball to kick a 2-point score, or we're going to try and work it inside to get a Damien Comer for a 1 point. And what do Armagh do? Well, do we push out onto the 40 metre arc because we don't want to lose this game? Mm-hmm. But if they do, there's space inside. That's why the arc is there. Is trying, incentivise, because 5 things people want to see. One of them is long range scoring, and if there's any skill that gets, well, obviously a goal. But there's limited enough goals. If you get like 3 goals in the game, 2-1, that's been a good game of football. So it's the long range scores that can get people out of their seats, or high fielding. That's what they're the skills of the game. So from an Armagh perspective, do they push out? And if they do, well, the other reason for that arc there is that it creates space inside for either a goal or for a point. And I don't think it devalues a point at all. Once. Again, what's your philosophy? To keep the scoreboard ticking over, just keep building attacks, and if you keep getting the 1-pointers, well, then they're going to sit back and mark for the 1-pointers, which creates space outside. So these are the things that coaches are going to think about how they exploit that.
Yeah. Again, look, who knows? We have to see it play out. I do wonder. Take that Galway Donegal game as an example. I don't know what really incentivises less of the lateral safety first, keep possession. Tone to that game. Yeah,
and the only thing that will get rid of that is a shot clock. It's the only thing that will get rid of it. So you incentivize, hit the clock once you have the possession, and you got to score like in basketball, 24 seconds.
Were you close to?
No, we discussed it, and one of the provinces, said we think that's a good idea. When we went down to Laois, Port Laois with the Leinster, somebody, the delegates that. Some of them said, that because we were at that when we went on our roadshow, probably back in April maybe, with all the provinces. So we, our governance structure is Central Council. We always brief them first, then it's the provincials, then that's the way it has to be. And in fairness to the Gaelic Writers Association, and the media in general, they were very good to us in terms of promoting the work they were doing. So there was, we heard words like "be as radical as you want" from some of the provinces, which was a great endorsement to just have a look at everything. Don't have an open mind. But I think the practicalities of it, it just wouldn't work at club level. Whatever about in Thurles or in Porky Queeve or McHale Park, but to having it, just wouldn't work. So,
agreed.
So these are, but this is the game, and we're not trying to come up with a new manufactured game. If teams want to play that possession type game, you can still do it to a lesser extent. But the option now is that you can, and you would have think the Connacht team trying to lure the Niall Morgan into a trap, and they did set some traps from late in the game. So what you could see there was straight away the coaches were adapting on the fly. And just go back to the provinces. I know people said like there was I wouldn't say it was a timid game. I met the players. I was in some of the dressing rooms before the game. I've been in enough dressing rooms to sense a tenseness in the dressing room, of a focus. They were going out just to kick a ball around. I know from speaking to all four managers, it was a competition they wanted to do. So they mightn't win it, but they wanted to do that, put their best foot forward. So from a player's perspective, I think it would be disrespectful to say that it was a timid game, because it wasn't.
Physically committed, hard running, all of those things. I just thought there was a touch more air of adventure and less risk aversion than we are going to get when a player's season is on the line. That's all. That's a natural.
So you have just presented a case, Joe, to have. That's why we have these in the National Football League.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen,
and at club level, which I was we were very pleased that the Congress took that decision last week.
Yeah. Sorry, this is no one's fault. This is just you have to go through the process, and we're going to see it fully borne out. Yeah. But it's not like you could suddenly drop these into an All-Ireland final to test them. You have to go through a process. It was the only way to do it. I suppose the two areas people are slightly, this could be trickier, and they're linked is at club level, and you guys were absolutely clear, we want this taken on board, club level and inter-county. Let's not have a split here. Yeah. And that passed at 93%, so everybody agreed with that point. But so club level, refereeing standards, the markings on the pitch, I mean, it's interesting things. So, you've been conscious of that, the shot clock, how feasible is that at club level? So it's not like it's suddenly striking the FRC, God, the clubs have to do this. You obviously feel you've just about pushed it as far as you can for it to work at club level as well. People are talking about things like pitch markings and, God, how can a referee who's trying to get him down a pitch at club level see, God, was his foot inside or outside the arc? This kind of stuff. Do you accept that point? Do you have a concern, or are you pretty confident?
Yeah, we do accept it. We do accept it. And we do acknowledge that in the current game, referees make mistakes. Could be a square ball, could be a penalty, could be an off-the-ball instance behind the referee's back. He doesn't see it. Could be a sideline ball. Ball could have been over the bar. Might have been wide. He's got two club umpires that are arguing with each other. So it's not a perfect system. The closest you get to it is probably at championship level in the counties. So it'll be intermediate championship, junior championship, senior, where you've got two neutral line umpires and obviously a referee, and maybe a neutral umpires as well. And obviously at an inter-county level, that's a given. So, and that will all help referees at championship in both inter-county and club level. But we do take the point on a November's evening down in West Clare, Cora Clare against Doonbeg, and referees on their own. What are they supposed to do? The clubs can help. The clubs can help by marking their pitches. It's quite clear in the rule book what way the pitch should be marked. So that's just an excuse from my perspective. How can we help the referees as well as in terms of the education piece? So we have a call later on this week with Donald Smith, who is the referees coordinator, and his team in Croke Park about rolling out that plan to inter-county referees. There's a call next week with the coaches. Then we've got club referees following shortly thereafter. So there's a full programme activity now for the next 8 weeks. We'll take a little break maybe Christmas week. And that's been coordinated by Croke Park. So this is, FRC in some ways will, shape the direction, but, the GAA itself has to own this. And then the rules themselves. As I said, the rules for dissent, the rules for delay fouls, the rules for black carding, handing ball to the back. We've seen lots of instances where players hold on to the ball and, all this, and players come in, the melee, the black card. Yeah. This will make the referee's life a lot easier. They're not going to be getting badgered on the sideline.
It's brilliant.
If they are, the ball's being brought up.
Yeah.
So that gives the referee a little bit more capacity to focus on officiating the game.
Okay.
Then the 3-3, which is the one people say, how will that work? And again, all I've seen with my eyes in the Meath regional tournament is the players adapt very quick. First game, I saw, one team broke it 3 times in the first game, and twice was by one player who just got lost, and he was told fairly lively from his manager, don't do that again, because he was conceding obviously a point. So the punishment to the crime is so severe. So we're disincentivizing teams to break line. And of course players will try it. We'll bring an extra player back. That could happen. Like players and coaches will break the rules.
Darrow Shea's point, yeah.
But if you're caught, if the referee sees that you've only left 2 players up and there should be 3, he simply gives you free against you. And all of a sudden it's a point. And then players are looking around it. Who broke the line? So that's not to become self-policing, but the habituation, and all of us who are involved in coaching, we play games, one-touch football, take 2 hops of solo, 1 bounce pass, pull a sock up, kick drops a foot. Like for our generation, Joe, you and me, it's probably more difficult to get our heads around it. For a 10-year-old, a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, our education system provides, that develops critical thinkers. They'll just say, because they're playing multiple sports.
Yeah.
We played 3-3 up in football. That's the rule, Jim. Fine, and they get on with it. And then when they get through to senior level, the whole bit about the give respect, get respect is, and that was a key part for us as well. Is that if there's 6 chapters of football rules, there's a chapter on its own for dissent. So people long before my time have said that this is an issue. It has its own chapter, which we really found surprising. And you give any colour of cards, black, yellow, red, for dissent, it's still a problem. So, in not in all instances, but it still is an issue that needs to be addressed. And anyway, in society, young men and women, young boys and girls, diversity, respect each other. They just don't. It's not in their. And I would find it difficult, maybe even to look life through their lens. We have a huge bias from our age, and we see things differently. And all the roaring and shouting in the classrooms and all the stuff that went on when we were growing up, that simply is not tolerated in schools, in society, from the younger generation. So this will be easy for them. Yes. It'll be harder for us.
Well, that would be good if referees could be treated better. Less of this our generation, by the way. Will you stop? I'm not in your generation.
Oh, you're not?
I hope not. Have you had many instances where, like, you think of the kind of circus that goes with VAR in the Premier League and like, is the toenail just offside?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Have you had many instances with the kicking from outside the arc for 2 points where it's like, oh, where is this?
No, I haven't seen that. And of course that could happen.
Yeah.
So if your foot is on the line, that's okay. So we had that quite quickly, rather than if your foot on the line, you're off the line. So if foot on the line, it's okay, which means as your momentum takes you to kick the ball, you might be 39.5 metres or 39.8 metres just inside the line. But once your planted foot is on the line, that's okay. That's the rule. So and that should make it easier.
And you pray to God an All-Ireland final doesn't come down to a zoom in and look, that's life. That can happen.
That can happen with penalties. They picked the ball up. I was involved in lots of games where players picked the ball up in 95.
What game are you talking about? Oh yeah,
that would be in Peter Gavin in 95. So these instances happen anyway. And I think the association had a look at VAR, and I'm not sure it's a way direction we want to travel, but it's not that wouldn't be my call.
Okay. So your overarching thoughts, you seem very happy with how the year has gone, the reaction from 7,000 people giving you their opinions, the way the FRC has worked, the way Congress have embraced the changes, and now it's showtime. But you seem very pleased with how. Yeah,
we are. Of course we are. Yeah, like we're on track. That's probably in summary of what I'd say. Like I've been impressed, as I said, with in summary with the clubs and the delegates. Their level of knowledge when we went around to all the FRC members took different counties. We're just very impressed with their engagement, their understanding of it, the probing questions. But what's evident is there's an ambition to support the vision that the association has to make Gaelic games, and this isn't Gaelic football, the most exciting amateur game in the world to play and watch.
Wow. Well, that'd be something. I said I was going to throw one curveball at you. Can I? And if you don't answer, you don't answer. It's not a particularly controversial one, but you're a deep thinker about the game and the association, and people respect your opinion enormously. It's just been bubbling away the last couple of weeks. Pat Gilroy resigned as director of Croke Park, and he was under the impression there was a motion this month about payments to managers, which was incorrect. But his thoughts on the area still stand, I think, because Jarlath Burns has suggested we have a mature conversation about manager contracts. He said we haven't looked officially at amateur status since 1997, so things have changed. Let's be mature about this. Under the table payments, etc., are much talked about. So Pat Gilroy said, as part of his resignation, the GAA is going down a path I don't think, and he's talking about this area, is compatible with what the organisation should be. The things that are concerning me is this talk of paying managers. That concerns me because what's precious about the GAA is the amateur status. It's unique in the world and it's so democratically run. The idea of blanket payments to managers, the idea of a paid Dublin manager standing in front of players who aren't being paid, I can't get my head around it, was his sense. And he did qualify that by saying in weaker counties where there might be less of a kind of experience of high performance, he said, look, I've no problem with a structure where the manager might also be the game's development manager and he's kind of bring a county up across the board. But this notion of manager getting paid, standing in front of players not getting paid, we can appreciate almost the maturity in Jarlath Burns saying, listen, if it's happening, let's regulate it and make it upfront. But where are you in that area?
Yeah, so from Pat's perspective, that's Pat's particular opinion, and he's obviously articulated that. My perspective, I'd find it difficult to stand in front of any team, and if they weren't getting paid, how would the manager get paid? I'd find that difficult. But the association being very clear in its ethos in terms of preserving that amateur status. I mean, I've just articulated the vision. That's the most exciting amateur game.
Yes.
It's not semi-pro amateur game, the world to play much. And yet we do have in the association to run like the vastness of it. It touches every village, every community, every parish in Ireland, and the global games as well. We need professionals to run our association. So we have professionals at Croke Park at a HQ level, we have professionals at each of the provincial levels, and we have professionals at county level to run our games. So Jarlath, as a took on Cumla Casquel, has set up a committee to look at it. And it's over now to David Hassan and his group to do their research and to know more so than ourselves. And I'm sure there'll be dialogue and there'll be surveys and get the sense of get Pat's opinion and my opinion and everybody else's opinion in the association who are the members of the association. And then ultimately you would think, a bit like this, the FRC, you present the facts and then as we have the Supreme Governing Body, or Corla, or the Supreme Governing Body for Rule Changes, Congress make a vote and say, well, this is the direction we want to go. We want to either maintain our amateur status or we want to start paying inter-county managers. So I would have a faith in Jarlath and faith in and trust in David to do a good job on it and ultimately to present the evidence to us. I
think the quite unusual aspect to this dynamic is that the rule is there and managers shouldn't be being paid.
Yep.
But culturally, it seems to be happening quite a lot in different guises. And so there's a rule and yet there's an acceptance across the whole GA community, well, yourself, what the actual crack is. So Jarlath's almost saying, my sense is, well, listen, whatever we're doing here, we need to be honest.
Yeah.
And at the moment, there's a dishonesty to the dynamic.
And I think he said Jarlath's his leadership is shining through here, that he's prepared to address rules in Gaelic football, which is probably an easy one. He probably could step away, particularly with his own county doing so well, and particularly Ulster doing so well in Gaelic games. He could have, the easy thing was to do was just let it ride out somebody else's problem. In this one, he's taken it head on, and I think credit needs to go to him for that. And indeed for the management committee in Croke Park for saying, okay, let's have a look at this and let's. And again, I don't think it's a case of producing a report. It's a case of doing the analysis and presenting it back, and then let's consider what are the next steps.
Listen, you've been very, very good with your time. I know you're a busy man, so well done again. 2025 going to be an interesting year.
Yep, certainly is, Joe, and thanks for promotion of the FRC work. Appreciate it.
No, very well done. Jim Gavin, thank you.
Walter Rove.